At 0602 hours, a Russian Mi-8 transport helicopter lifted off from a forward operating base in northeastern Ukraine, its twin turboshaft engines settling into a steady, familiar rhythm as it descended to low altitude. Inside the cabin sat a full squad of assault troops, weapons secured, faces unreadable in the dim red light, expecting another routine insertion flight toward Ukrainian positions. The plan was simple and had worked dozens of times before. Fly low, hug the terrain, follow roads instead of straight lines, emit nothing that could be detected. No radar, no radio chatter, no GPS, just visual navigation through the gray morning haze. The helicopter skimmed forward at roughly 150 kilometers per hour, barely 40 meters above the ground, its rotor wash flattening grass and dust beneath it. To the pilots, the flight felt uneventful, almost mundane. But far ahead of their path, hidden in fog and tree lines, 3 Ukrainian FPV drone operators had been awake since 0400. They were not watching the sky, they were listening to it. Weeks earlier, Ukrainian engineers and partisans had deployed an improvised acoustic detection network across this sector. Modified smartphones, stripped down to their microphones and processors, were hidden in fake rocks, trash bins, fence posts, and roadside debris. Each device was solar-charged, battery-powered, and connected through a low-power, long-range wireless protocol that could transmit tiny data packets over 10 kilometers using less energy than an LED light bulb. These sensors waited silently for days, sometimes weeks, doing nothing but listening. At 0603, the first sensor picked it up, a low-frequency thump, a pressure wave in the 20 to 40 hertz range that cut cleanly through fog and forest canopy. The distinctive acoustic fingerprint of a Mi-8's 5-blade rotor, spinning at exactly 192 revolutions per minute. Within seconds, 2 more sensors confirmed the sound. Each recorded the precise millisecond the noise arrived. Because sound travels at 343 meters per second, the time difference between sensors told a story no radar could. Triangulation calculations ran automatically, narrowing the helicopter's position to within 50 meters at a range of 5 kilometers. 3 phones buzzed simultaneously in 3 separate hiding places. A single aggregated message, stripped of emotion, stripped of commentary. Contact detected. The Ukrainian operators had positioned themselves to cover the 3 likely routes. One watched the M03 highway, another monitored northern farm roads, while the third held position near the southern river valley. Missing this chance meant the Russian assault troops would reach Ukrainian forward positions unchallenged. This was not a target that could be allowed to pass. The operator covering the M03 launched a small spotter drone immediately, its electric motors whisper quiet as it climbed. The northern operator stared at his acoustic feed, waiting for confirmation on his route. Nothing yet. The southern operator began calculating intercept angles for all 3 possible paths, running geometry in his head, knowing they would have seconds, not minutes, to react once the helicopter's direction became clear. The morning air created a dangerous advantage for sound. A temperature inversion had formed overnight, trapping cold air beneath warmer layers and bending sound waves back toward the ground like an invisible amplifier. Under these conditions, the Mi-8's rotor noise could travel 5 kilometers instead of 2. The acoustic network was performing better than anyone had dared to expect. At 0608, the helicopter made an unexpected move. Instead of continuing straight along the M03, it turned off onto a secondary dirt road, still heading northwest at speed. Something, intuition, caution, or a half-remembered briefing, had spooked the pilot into taking the scenic route. The change shaved kilometers off the flight and placed the helicopter only 7 kilometers from Ukrainian forward positions. Fog rolled in from the Dnipro River like a living thing. Patchy visibility collapsed into a solid wall below 60 meters. In 2 minutes, the helicopter would be invisible to everything except sound. And sound alone would not be enough for a precision intercept. The northern operator began relocating south when his controller went dead in his hands. The cold had drained the battery faster than expected. He cursed, fingers numb, tearing open his pack and swapping in a backup battery wrapped in hand warmers. Every second mattered. The helicopter gained another kilometer. The lead operator reached for his primary drone, a Shrike 10 FPV unit that looked like a machine assembled in a garage, because it was. Chinese racing motors, a Soviet-era RPG warhead, zip ties, solder joints, and sheer stubbornness held it together. The PG-7M warhead was connected to the flight controller through a piezoelectric impact trigger, essentially a crystal that would generate voltage on collision. But months of storage had allowed moisture to creep in. Corrosion had eaten at the handmade connection. These were not factory weapons. Every solder joint was a potential failure. Every battery connection was a prayer. As he worked furiously to repair the trigger, the acoustic network fed increasingly urgent updates into his earpiece. Bearing 285 degrees, speed steady at 150, altitude holding at 40 meters, Doppler shift confirming direction. The helicopter was still following the dirt road, now well inside the fog bank. The lead operator made the call. He abandoned the primary drone and grabbed the backup. It was inferior in almost every way. Shorter range, weaker transmitter, worse battery life, a 3S LiPo pack that might give 8 minutes in cold air that read 6 degrees Celsius on his phone. But it worked. Ukrainian engineering had a simple rule. If it's stupid and it works, it isn't stupid. He secured the questionable connection with superglue that would probably melt from motor heat, but might last long enough. Then he armed the drone and launched it into the fog. At 0618, the third operator's drone disappeared into gray static. Fog swallowed the camera feed completely. He flew blind, relying on compass heading and mental math, adjusting course as acoustic updates came in. Water droplets scattered infrared light and bent sound around moisture pockets, creating acoustic shadows in visual whiteout. For 90 seconds that felt like hours, he stared at electronic snow, trusting physics more than sight. The helicopter could not climb above the fog without entering radar coverage. It could not deviate far from the road without risking unmarked power lines. Constraints narrowed its options until prediction became certainty. Behind the scenes, a Russian Borisogledsk II electronic warfare vehicle detected something unusual. Spectrum analyzers lit up with ghost signals hopping across multiple bands. The operators knew drones were airborne. They just couldn't grab hold of the control link. Express LRS, an open-source control system, hopped frequencies hundreds of times per second. By the time a jammer found one channel, the signal was already gone. To the Russians, it sounded like whispers in a crowded room. At 0621, the Mi-8 burst out of the fog exactly where the math said it would. The spotter drone confirmed visual. Celebration lasted less than a heartbeat. The lead operator checked his battery. 60%, 3 kilometers to cover. His drone topped out at 100 kilometers per hour. The helicopter cruised at 150. A chase was impossible. Only interception remained. Hard math, no margin for error. At 0623, the drone reached the ambush point. 40% battery remained, the indicator flashing red like a warning light in a sinking submarine. He positioned the drone 5 meters above a field beside the road, motors barely spinning to conserve power. Analog video at 5.8 gigahertz filled his goggles with static flecked imagery. He chose analog because 20 milliseconds of latency beat digital's 100 when milliseconds decided everything. The sound reached them before the sight. The synchronized chop of the Mi-8's rotor grew louder, the acoustic team now triangulating its position to within 50 meters. 30 seconds out. Then sunlight broke through for an instant, flashing off the helicopter's canopy. Distance, speed, altitude, everything lined up. At 0624, the Mi-8 passed overhead. The operator slammed the throttle forward. All four motors screamed, drawing maximum amperage as the drone climbed straight into the rotor wash. Turbulence hit like a fist, spinning the drone violently. The video feed became chaos. He fought for orientation, muscle memory taking over, thousands of simulator hours compressing into seconds. The closure rate felt agonizingly slow. The helicopter was pulling away, even as the drone climbed. But this was the geometry he had solved 8 minutes earlier. At 0625, the drone struck. The shaped charge detonated instantly. The Monroe effect turned a copper liner into a focused jet of molten metal, traveling at nearly 8,000 meters per second. The physics were decades old and brutally effective. The Mi-8's aluminum skin, barely 2 millimeters thick, offered no resistance. Fire consumed the aircraft as it fell into the field below. A spotter drone swooped in, recording the wreckage as confirmation. The Russian electronic warfare crew was still jamming frequencies that did not exist when the emergency beacon activated. By then, the Ukrainian operators were already packing up, moving before artillery could respond. A $500 drone, guided by sound and math and courage, had done what planners said was impossible. It was not luck. It was preparation, improvisation, and the quiet patience of listening to the sky.